Scott from Smart Kits Australia here, and today we are going to be installing a skillion roof patio or carport. Now, a lot of people say, what's a skillion roof? Well, a skillion roof is basically just a flat roof structure. Not just, but they have an application and certainly a place where they should be used. A skillion roof gives you a nice flat edge, a nice gutter line that blends with the house. So we're on this site here, and you can see we're putting a carport at the front of this house. Now, the best thing is about a skillion roof, it could be a patio or it could be a carport. And you'll see our Thermalock steel beams and our bracket assembly in the corner there. If you imagine a skillion roof being like a square or a rectangle, we have a perimeter of beams around the outside, and we create that perimeter by using our beams and connector system. In this instance, we are attaching this structure partially to the brick walls of the house so that the structure can sit in front of the garage, but under the eave line. Because they've got an eave where they've got a raking angle, you can see that there in that ceiling, makes it very difficult to attach a flat structure to the eave of the house or the fascia of the house. So we're putting this one in front of that, in front of the wall, underneath the eave. Now, when we cut our Thermalock beams, we're using a 4 or a 5-inch angle grinder with a really thin cutting blade on there. We've obviously marked the length that we want to cut it at, and you're just doing a nice gentle little cut there. Very important that once the beam is cut, to clean off all of the swarf or offcuts on that beam as well, just to give it a good clean. Now, put a little bit of touch-up paint around the cut as well. With our bracket system covers any cuts that have to be done, so you don't have any exposed cuts in our system at all. And you'll see the boys are just putting this beam into position between those brick pillars. And what we're doing here is we're creating a nice flat, even surface to be able to fit the back of our roof to. Because we want this roof to go from the right-hand side of the brick pillar to the left-hand side of the other brick pillar. You see we're putting a couple of 12-20 Tech screws into that bracket to hold the beam in place. Looking good. And we've obviously chosen a cream coloured beam to blend with the cream colour of the house. So the secret to success with these type of flat roofs, especially in this application, is to build the frame. So to build the perimeter beams, we build our square of beams, is our starting point. Look at that. And this is young Bailey. Bailey is, we thought it was kind of funny because Bailey is named the same as the ladder. Bailey make ladders. And our apprentice on site today is called Bailey as well. And so the boys putting up the side beams. We also call these return beams. And there's already a bracket in place on that brick wall with 2 M12 masonry anchors, and young Bailey here just lifting the beam up into position and holding it on a temporary prop. So these are our sides. And one of the things that we do suggest highly in our installation guides is to use some props. You can use some timber, a piece of stud, something that you can hold vertically in place securely. And I have seen people do all sorts of weird and funky things when it comes to putting these side beams up, lots of propping beams in place. Brackets, there are no hard and fast rules. It's often a good thing just to use a garbage bin with another garbage bin on top. I've seen that done before as well. These beams aren't super heavy, so you do get some flexibility with regards to holding those beams up. And the boys putting up the other side return beam. These are called a return beam that run down the left and right hand side of a flat skillion structure. And Steve's just fixing that beam into place now with the bracket that he's already put into location on the brickwork. And once again, you'll see the props that we use to hold the beams up, making installation a lot easier when you've got bracing and propping in place, ready to go. And probably the single most important beam in your flat roof skillion structure is what's called the head beam. The head beam is the main supporting beam at the front of the roof. When we say the front of the roof, we're talking about generally the projection point or the lowest point of the roof, although skillion flat roofs can fall backwards towards the house as well. And so this one does fall away from the house, and this is the head beam. You'll notice this beam is slightly larger than the beams on the side. That's not an uncommon thing to do. This is a 200 by 50 millimeter beam, and it's spanning around about 6.5 meters. So using a slightly larger beam to carry that length and load of the roof. The return beams, the side beams, are 150 by 50 beams. Now the brackets were already in place on that beam. Steve and Bailey here just lifted that beam up. They slotted it into the bracket, and now they are going to put in the 20 millimeter Tek screws to hold that beam in place. So what we can see now is a perimeter of beams here. The two side beams, the front beam, and of course that beam that we started with at the back of the structure fitted between the brickwork in the garage area. Looking pretty good. This is our corner beam assembly. 200mm beam with a 150mm beam on the side, and obviously our end connector bracket holding it together. And this 150 beam running back to the brick wall, a 150 beam running between the brickwork. And what we've created is a square or a rectangle. It doesn't have to be perfectly square. Now, obviously, those two beams on the side are propped up, which means that what we have now is the opportunity to get things square. And the angle or the fall on the roof correct. Okay, beams in place, and our boys checking with the homeowner to make sure that we've got the height correct. Obviously, you get one shot at it, so you want to make sure that he's happy. And jumping forward to the finished product here, obviously we have other videos with regards to installing roofing, but you can get the general idea with regards to installing your perimeter beams and aspects of these flat roof skillion designs. Our double-sided high gloss roof sheeting gives you a clean, bright look on the underside. This is our trim deck profiled sheeting, and you can see how well this blends up against the house. Of course, the house has got a discontinued colour on its existing gutters, so we've had to use a darker colour on this one, but still came up pretty good, we thought. Intersecting beams into the side of other beams, simply done with our bracket system. And of course, this is that beam at the back of the structure that fitted between the brickwork. So a good connection there. And you can see our roof, the existing house, and then the existing house above that. So lots of layers to this one, but just a good example of how well our structures complement this style of home. Nice big double carport, metal downpipes on the front. Skillion roof structure. Doesn't have to be complicated. Doesn't have to be expensive. Doesn't have to be difficult. Our boys installed this one in about a day and a half. And we supply plenty of these kits all over Australia. This is a great option for your DIYers out there, the guys who want to have a crack at building these things themselves. Absolutely no reason not to. It's not rocket science. You can do it. Just remember, all of our roof sheeting comes pre-cut to length. Our beams come pre-cut to length if required, if you want to make it as easy as possible. But of course, very important to make sure that you have all of your measurements down to the millimetre correct. Of course, Smart Kits Australia supplying these structures for many, many years all over Australia, and we have our fantastic $500 holding deposit to offer on now.